This is a Q&A on Marine Radio blog. Let's find out what is EGDIS voyage plan, the best practice. As you see, the use of EGDIS interferes with a lot of information to be analyzed. Safety values to configure are affected by many factors, including company procedures, master standing orders, and general industry recommendations. The question of EGDIS safety values is quite wide to cover and often takes more time than the EGDIS user assumes. We think that to cover the question we need to segregate of items which we discuss, and where possible we try to add best practice recommendations to make the content of video valuable to our information users. We created a set of information cards for items affecting of safety values of EGDIS pre-setup. Here is a minimum to take in account when you will tune up your EGDIS for a safe voyage. And examine yourself if you follow the same practice when adjusting your EGDIS for the voyage. We hope that era of navigators who sailing with 30 meters default safety contour already has been. After receiving of itinerary and sailing instructions, before to set up EGDIS safety parameters, we pay attention to the next items. Master has the utmost responsibility on board, and we have to respect the master standing orders which we put on the card number 1. As a minimum, master establish preferences based on his experience and the company regulations. Also, standing orders or sailing instructions can be issued by the owner or charter, and master is the one who reflects those requirements on board the vessel. Such orders can include instructions about underkill clearance, chart selection, data relevant to maneuvering, etc. Look at our card number 1. UKC policy on it. Keep always no less than 10% of the maximum static draft. Always use route relative charts. Large scale ENC for coastal passages must be implemented. For machinery status also we have a comment. Before changing the speed, call engine control room 20 minutes in advance and make a note on the chart about such an action. About position fixing frequency there is a note. The maximum intervals in open water 30 minutes, in confined waters 6 minutes. For position plotting are established by master in that case. EGDIS safety parameters pre-setup on big and giant vessels must take into account the squat effect. Our card number 2 is about squat effect. There are formulas for squat calculations. Dr. Berra's formula helps to determine a squat with sufficient approximation. The squat effect needs to be considered for the underkill clearance calculation. We have next elements in Dr. Berra's formula: block coefficient, fill factor, width of the vessel, draft, width of influence in open waters, water depth in meters, and speed through water in knots. Applying the formula, a table is prepared with the speed reflected in columns and the water depths are reflected in lines. Analyzing the table, we have to find out at which water depths the speed should be reduced significantly to avoid the influence of squat effect. So we insist that you have to take into account the squat effect. The calculation techniques and the available formulas you can easily find searching the internet. At the same time, we have to calculate the influence of increased draft due to rolling and pitching. Card number 3 is about that. For vessels of extensive size, the draft increase caused by rolling is obvious to the dependency on the widths. There is a formula for calculation of that effect, where D is draft, C is heeling angle, and B is maximum breadth. Effect of pitching may be observed in coast approach situations in heavy weather conditions, and resonant pitching also may appear. There is a formula for calculation of that. where D is draft, theta pitch angle, and L length of the vessel. A table based on current draft to describe the effect of rolling and pitching must be prepared and analyzed by the navigator. The table will have as a line rolling or pitching angle, and as a column it will show us increased draft in meters. The information on the EGDIS display completely depends on user setups. Card number 4 is about company required display settings. When you make your voyage, you have to ensure that no less than required settings are implemented. Your company policies may have specific requirements concerning EGDIS display settings. Next layers must be never deactivated when planning a voyage and navigating. And as example, company may establish all isolated dangers, depth contours, shallow pattern, depths, and so on. You have to follow the company requirements. Good seamanship recommends us to use next display settings for planning. We have to deactivate the scan-in function. We have to put on the ZOC information on the display, and we have to assess it. We need to use layouts higher than standard display. A standard display layout will not give us enough data for planning. For example, depths are not included in standard layout. We have to use the IAO overlay and keep it on. And when we manually first time analyze the route for hazards, we have to use all layers available in our EGDIS. And of course, any other company requirements must be implemented if those are established for display settings when you do your planning. Turning from leg to leg, we have to take in account wheel over point. Card number 6 says us about that. Of course, your company should give you the instructions for that parameter. General recommendation says us that we use 1 or 1.5 ship's lengths before turn as setup for EGDIS. So keep it in your notes. We have to protect the vessel, cargo and the passengers from extreme loads when making a turn. Also, extreme heeling should be avoided. Rate of turn parameter is very important when you're planning your voyage. We are analyzing information on card number 7, and very often your company policies may have specific requirements for these parameters. There are industrial recommendations which say us that for smooth turn we have to use 7-10 degrees per minute of rate of turn. Also, available rate of turn depends on the vessel maneuverability. In general case, for smooth turning, rate of turn should not be higher than 20 degrees per minute. And of course, we have the formula for rate of turn determination. Knowing the radius of turn and the speed of the vessel, we can determine with what rate of turn parameter we can pass the needed radius. For practical reasons, it is obvious that during the actual passage, the ship may have to deviate from the intended track for various reasons, such as collision avoidance, for example. Taking this into consideration and taking advantage of EGDIS to detect chart dangers, a safety corridor can be defined along the track. Card number 8 about that. When the cross-track distance limits are displayed, it is possible to distinguish visually in the chart window whether the obstructions and hazards are inside or outside the safety area. At the same time, when we plan the XTD, we have to take in account the horizontal ZOC of the chart. Special attention should be paid while setting and adapting the track and setting the XTD values in port areas. No objects or forbidden or dangerous areas should interfere with the indicated navigable corridor. There are peculiarities when you're adjusting the XTD for channels and narrow areas. Also, your company, as a rule of thumb, will give you some policies about this specific parameter. The general industrial recommendations give us some pre-setups for harbor, coastal and open waters. Those parameters are dependent on the vessel's breadth. Look at the card number 8. As you see, the minimum cross-track limit or cross-track distance setup should be never less than the ship's breadth. Required underkill clearance, normally established in the policy of your company. Let's comment the general recommendations about the required UKC. For open deep sea, that one is 12 nautical miles from shore. When the water depths are more than twice the vessel's static draft, then no UKC calculations are required. When the water depths are less than or equal to twice the vessel's static draft, the minimum UKC should be 50% of the static draft. For coastal passages, shallow water passage, which is less than 12 nautical miles from the shore, 20% of ship's static draft should be implemented. Port approaches and channels, fairways, 10% of the static draft we use for required UKC. When we stay alongside, good practice advises us to use at least 1.5% of the vessel beam or 0.3 meters, whichever is greater, under the keel. When we are at anchor, unprotected waters should not be less than 20% of ship's static draft. In protected, sheltered waters, our UKC should be not less than 10% of the ship's static draft. Knowing the best practice in the industry, you can analyze your company regulations. Prior to the use of nautical charts, it is advisable to check the source and quality of the database. The accuracy of NEC is only as good as the hydrographic data it is based upon. So, card number 10 is about zone of confidence for the chart. You can use pickup report or your specific settings of ECDIS to display the zone of confidence as a chart overlay. There are 6 categories of ZOC. You have to carefully analyze the position accuracy and the depth accuracy of the charts for intended voyage. The calculation of the safety depth value is similar to the safety contour calculations. Card number 11 is about that, but unlike the safety contour, the safety depth will be displayed more precisely compared to the safety contour. This is due to the reference of the safety depth to the spot soundings. Depending on the particular ECDIS, the safety depth can be set independently, equal to or less than safety contour value. Your company may have specific requirements about safety depth calculation. A vessel should never proceed towards the soundings less than safety depth. The calculation of safety depth depends on next items: static draft, maximum ship draft in calm conditions, required underkill clearance, required clearance under the keel according to your company policy, correction for the ship squat, sounding accuracy correction based on ZOC, water density correction, increase of draft due to heeling, increase of draft due to pitching, and of course you have to deduct the tide level. Pay attention when deducting the tide. It may be positive or negative. Of all the safety settings, the most attention should be paid to the safety contour. Card number 12 is about that parameter. The default presetting is 30 meters in every ECDIS and should be adjusted according to the procedure established by the company and at the discretion of the master. If the contour is crossed by the planned track, or if the vessel is moving towards or across the safety contour, an alarm is activated which indicates that an area has been entered where the UKC might have been violated. Extremely important to know that the indication of isolated dangers in the ENCs is dependent on the safety contour settings. On ECDIS, only the available depth contours can be displayed in ENCs, which are defined by the chart-producing hydrographic offices. This will usually be the same as those provided on the corresponding paper chart. If an entered contour value is between two available contours, the next higher value will be assumed by the ECDIS Recommended safety contour presetup is always equal to the safety depth calculations. Industry insists to use the 4-color palette for display of the INSI charts on the EGDIS screen. Card number 13 is about shallow contour. Shallow contour is only visible on 4 shades depth scheme. It is recommended to set the shallow contour equal to the draft of the vessel plus an adequate squat value. Card number 14 is about one more parameter from the 4-shade depth scheme. This is a deep contour. Your company policies have specific requirements for this parameter, but as general recommendation, the deep contour should be set to a value twice the vessel's dynamic draft, so that she can then run at full speed without being affected by obvious hydrodynamic effects. Card number 15 about track period. Of course, as usual, your company policies have specific requirements for these parameters. This is a valuable function to continuously display position fixes. And of course, we have some general recommendations. When we navigate open sea, we use a maximum 30 minutes for track period display, but in confined waters, recommended to keep maximum 6 minutes information about track period. A valuable function of EGDIS is to continuously display position fixes and at the same time monitor a detection area ahead of the ship for hazards to navigation. This detection area may have a different name depending on the manufacturer, but common terms include safety frame, safety cone, look ahead window, anti-grounding cone, and danger detection. On our card number 16, we referenced here as detection area. EGDIS will alert when the detection area initially crosses the safety contour or a navigational hazard, and again when the ship crosses them. The navigator is able to determine which navigational hazard triggers these alerts and the size of the detection area. The size of detection area is based either on distance or time. So, an important function is to monitor a detection area ahead of the ship for hazards. And here we have some industrial recommendations. For harbor navigation, normally we use 6 minutes or 0.2 nautical mile frame. For coastal navigation, 12 minutes or 0.3 nautical mile frame. For open waters, recommended to use 18 minutes or 0.4 nautical mile frame. The turn radius defines the transitional movement of the ship between two legs. Card number 17 says us about it. Turn radius allows for the space requirements during course changes, depending on speed and the rate of turn. The space of the sea area has to be kept in mind to ensure the track will not cross unsafe water areas. Attention should be paid to the resulting tracker after the turn radius values are entered. At high speed, the resulting curve might cut corners and could lead across shallow waters, land or navigational marks. Graphically visible, the geometric error in EGDIS indicates that a route has been planned that is physically impossible for the vessel to perform due to restrictions in maneuvering characteristics. This can be caused, for example, by short leg lines where the waypoints have been set too close, or a turn radius which cannot be performed by the vessel implemented. In common, your company policies have the specific requirements for this parameter. General recommendation: we can calculate the turn radius using the formula, where speed through the water in knots and the rate of turn in degrees per minute is affected. Card number 18 is about safe speed. With regard to safe speed, the IMO resolution A893 states that the detailed voyage or passage plan should include the following factors: safe speed, having regard to the proximity of navigational hazards along the intended route or track, the maneuvering characteristics of the vessel, and its draft in relation to the available water depths. In addition, the requirements of the Colregs Rule 6 state that every vessel shall at all times proceed at a safe speed so that she can take proper and effective action to avoid collision and be stopped within a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions. This means that a mandatory safe speed cannot be definitely determined in advance. The prevailing circumstances have to be evaluated at all times to define the right value, but in order to achieve a representative calculated time schedule, realistic speed values should be defined for each leg of the passage. Reduced adequate speed should be set in coastal waters and port areas, and the sea speed where it applies. If speed limits exist for certain passages, the limit should be inserted into the chart as a user chart object. Speed is one of the most important variables which directly affects such parameters as squat level, which increases with speed, bank sanction force, which increases with speed, hail during turning, which also increases with speed, rate of turn, need to have higher rate of turn to keep the vessel on the same radius with higher speed. Also, we shouldn't forget about speed restrictions. Within confined waters such as VTSS, channels or harbors, speed restrictions may apply. The limit should be inserted into the ECDIS by a user chart object to make the officer of the watch aware of this. We hope our video has opened a curtain about ECDIS setup and proved that ECDIS is not just about interface menu and button clicking. ECDIS is adjustable for each leg of the voyage, anti-grounding tool. We slide the button for the next question already. But to help us, we need you to subscribe to the channel, and we hope your thumb is rising up for the like